These are stories of outdoor adventure and expert advice from folks with calloused hands. I'm James Nash, and this is the Six Ranch Podcast. This episode of the Six Ranch Podcast is brought to you by Defend Security Cameras. Guides absolutely love to help clients accomplish success, right? And outfitters, safari owners, that's our whole day, is trying to figure out what their definition of success is and help them achieve it. And you were telling me a little bit about a guy, Darren, who had some physical limitations that he thought would prevent him from accomplishing a goal. I've run across that too, right? Like I had a dude who wanted to kill an elk really bad, and he was a triple amputee, above both knees and above an elbow, and he wasn't sure if he could go elk hunting. I mean, he still had a trigger finger, right? It's like that. If you got that part, I can take care of the rest. And he got a bull. My point, I guess, that I'm getting to is a physical limitation is so much less limiting than the limitations that some people might have that come from like an inflated sense of their skill or ego or like a personality thing, all of which guides figure out how to manage. But tell me about this gentleman that rolled up to you at SCI.
Yes,
roll's probably the right word.
We were working in the SCI booth in Nashville, and amongst a bunch of customers and clients who were coming along, an elderly gentleman came along in his electric chair, and he stopped and gazed into the booth for a few moments, and I stepped out and said to him, how was your day, and was he enjoying the show? And he said, well, yeah, I was, and I'm thinking about coming to New Zealand, but I'm too old, and my mobility restrictions are not going to allow me to finish my bucket list. And so we got chatting, and he'd travelled around the world. He'd shot a number of trophies, and especially in Russia and a few places. So he was a skilled guy and had a great knowledge. And on his bucket list was an elk, and he said, I'd love to kill an elk in New Zealand, but look at me, I'm not going to be able to do this. And so over an hour, Carrie and I chatted with him about the opportunities in New Zealand and what we could do for him, and how the flight wasn't too bad, and that it was reasonably plain sailing. And so he went away for an hour. He said, look, write it on a piece of paper and come back, and I'll think about it. And anyway, an hour later, he steamed back in and all four wheels and handed me the deposit and said, I'm booking, I'm going to come down, I trust you, we'll make this happen. And so he did. He came down that season, only probably about 12 weeks after the show, and he arrived here, and once again, he was very vocal to me about his mobility and the fact that he didn't think this was really going to be possible. And so over that 5 days, we worked closely with him, and we used the side-by-side to gain altitude, and we picked spots where we could get him into easily. And he was successful. I think it was on day 4 or day 5 to take an amazing elk. And I remember that so clearly, the look on his face, the pride, the X factor for him that we'd achieved that. And he came back that night and he said to me, I just never thought I would ever get this goal ticked off. So you've made it. And he said, I've got one other. I'd like to go shoot some paradise ducks. I'm like, oh, heck, okay. So the next morning we took him out and we managed to find a spot where the paradise were coming and going, and got him set up. And sure enough, he managed to take 2 paradise ducks with the shotgun. So it was a proud moment for us. But I guess coming back to where we started, the guides play such a key piece of that, right? And understanding what a client wants to achieve out of their time. I can think of many cases where someone arrives here and what we've talked about, maybe at the show, maybe online, maybe on the website, and what they've booked may be quite different to what they actually want to achieve when they get here. So I think that whole role that the guide plays in that of actually finding out the detail, taking the situation, looking at how we can manage that best and how we can achieve that best, and then actually role-playing that.
Yeah. I mean, for me, those are kind of my trophies, I guess, from a guiding sense, is the moments where I could work with somebody who thought that they weren't capable of something, and together that thing that they thought was impossible gets achieved, right? So those accomplishments, that's what I hang in the trophy room of my mind, and I love it a lot. Hunting here can be as hard as you want it to be, and it can also be something that, if you've got some limitations, well, there's a way for you to do that too. We're also sitting here with Miss Kate Bryant, who is the lead guide here, and you guide internationally. So you're working the Northern Hemisphere as well. Tell me a little bit about what got you interested in guiding, and how did you get started with it?
Yeah, so I basically grew up in a hunting family, as most New Zealanders do. And every spare weekend I had, I was out hunting, and that just wasn't enough time. So once I got old enough, I kind of decided I needed to spend as much time hunting as I could, and the only way I could do that was to make a living doing it. And initially, I actually started guiding over in BC, and all I did...
So you started it in BC?
Yeah.
British Columbia,
yeah. And all I did to get a job over there was send out mass emails to all of the outfitters over there, explaining who I was and why they should hire me. And I was very fortunate to get a job over there doing backpack.
What did you say?
Pretty much that I was just a hillbilly hunter that loved and lived for it.
Yeah.
And pride myself in being a hard worker, and that you wouldn't regret hiring me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How many people wrote back?
That first season, not so many. I probably had 3 options to choose from. Back then it was a little bit harder for a young woman to get a job doing that sort of thing. And I don't like to play on that card, because we all make, we all do our best. And even the employer that I went to, after a while, they said, I normally wouldn't have hired a girl, but we're just glad we took a chance on you.
Yeah.
And then I actually didn't end up staying working for that outfitter, because they only did backpack, and I really wanted to do horseback hunting.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a really good foot in the door for me for the industry. Yeah. So put in a full season there. And
what species were you guiding?
Stone sheep, mountain goat, mountain caribou, and Canadian moose. Yeah. But I didn't do all too much guiding that season. I did one mountain goat hunt. Yeah.
Yeah. But, you start out as a wrangler, or as a packer, as the person that has to do the things that the veteran guides don't want to do. And that is the way in. I think it's a bit of a misnomer for people who are interested in getting into guiding. They think that your first job as a guide is being a guide, and it's not. Like you're going to start with a broom, and that's been my way into a lot of jobs. That was my first job in firearms. I'd rolled a pickup coming back from an elk hunt when it was about 40 below zero, which is also 40 below 0 Celsius. Mm-hmm. And I broke my rifle stock in half. And I was in college. Me and my rifle stock were both broke. So I had gone down to this gun shop, and I said, hey, is there some work here that I can do so that you can fix my rifle before bear season? And they just told me to go away, which I did. And then I came back and asked again, and came back and asked again. And eventually the guy kind of got mad at me and said, well, you can sweep the floor if you want to. I was like, great, fantastic. And I cleaned the floor of that machine shop like it had never been cleaned before. And I said, can I come back tomorrow and do something else? And he said, sure. And I just came back and kept working. And before I knew it, I had a rifle, and I was learning more about how guns got built. And that was pretty helpful to start getting those lessons. But that type of attitude, I think, still works. And there's plenty of folks out there who think that hard work isn't the way forward anymore. I still believe that it is. It just takes longer than you might imagine.
You've got 20 acres, and your security camera can see about 50 feet from your Wi-Fi router. Your gate, your barn, your equipment, all the places you actually need to monitor, they're exactly where your Wi-Fi doesn't reach. That's where Defend security cameras make a lot of sense. They work on cellular, just like your phone. But here's what's clever. They've got an embedded SIM card that automatically connects to the best network in your area. Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile. It finds whatever's strongest. No choosing providers, no contracts, no hassle. I'm using Defend cameras at my place. You mount it, open the Defend app on your phone, and you're done. 10 minutes. Clear footage, night vision, instant alerts, and here's something you need to know. Defend doesn't sell your data. Not to China, not to tech companies, not to anyone. They work for you, period. Defend your place.
Yeah. Okay, so you start guiding in BC, and then when did you start guiding in New Zealand?
So I'd done probably 3 seasons over in BC by now, and then I decided that 3 months' work just in the hunting industry wasn't really enough. I'd come home between each guiding season, and I'd go contract fencing or contract mustering or any sort of contract farm work. And although I loved agriculture, hunting was definitely my passion. And I, once again, sent out mass emails to outfitters here, and I went over to the shows. So I was at Sheep Show and SCI in Reno, and I went and shook hands with all of the New Zealand outfitters that I'd emailed, just trying to pick up work. And I managed to get probably 3 different lots of work over that next season. So it wasn't a full season, but it was still a start. And yeah, it kind of just kicked off from there. Yeah.
Well, it's a pretty cool thing that I wish more guides would look at, is working both hemispheres, right? Because then you get 2 falls. Mm-hmm. And you are going to gain so much knowledge by doing that it's going to make you more valuable in each of those. Darren, how did you come by Kate?
So I'd always known, well, I'd obviously met Kate through the hunting industry and knew of her work she had done. And
she had a reputation.
She had a reputation, she did, and a very good one at that. So I knew of that, and I knew who Kate was, but I was lucky enough to cross paths with Kate in Dallas DSC show. I think it was 4 years ago originally, and we were out as a bunch of New Zealanders having a couple of drinks and catching up, and I think I said something to Kate about if there's ever an opportunity to and you need some work, let me know. And she did. She reached out at some point, and she had a little bit of space to come and help us at the end of the season, and she did, and super impressed. And I really loved the passion that Kate had, and the dedication, and the no frills approach to just getting it done and doing it well. And I felt that was very much in line with what sat behind us as a team here. And yeah, I guess you say the rest is history. It's awesome to have Kate here and have her knowledge, and I think what you touched on before, guides that have been overseas and have travelled the world just have that diversity and that X factor from a point of view of knowledge and understanding, and it's often important to clients when they want to talk about somewhere else in the world or another species or something to be able to have that geographical knowledge and that understanding.
Well, and you just pick up little tiny tools everywhere you go.
Yeah.
That one little thing, and you go, wow, that's interesting. I've never seen that before. And you store it away, and then maybe you never use it, and maybe something comes up, and you're like, oh, you know what? I saw this thing in British Columbia. I saw this thing in Tanzania. I saw this thing in Tierra del Fuego, Argentina. Let's try this. And you can start assembling the knowledge of the globe into one place, and you're just that much more valuable. And there's never been a time in history where we were able to consolidate knowledge and experience from all these hunting cultures around the world and apply them. So I think that today's hunters are very, very good. You know, we have a lot of technological assistance, but we've also got this massive amount of information that's never been available to any single hunter before. And I think it makes us pretty deadly.
Yeah, I think that that global experience is vital for understanding even some of the principles behind how we operate and the ethics behind it.
We talked about it a little bit the other day on the boat, but I think it's a really valuable point that a lot of people don't consider, is that if you're willing to take a flight to the Southern Hemisphere, you can get 2 Octobers, right? As I look at the opportunities of things in the Northern Hemisphere, all of the best of them are in September and October. And something will come up and I'll be like, hey, when's the best time to do that? And guys will be like, oh, be here October 5th, be here September 22nd. It's like, that's everything. It's everything. Well, add or subtract 6 months and a 13-hour flight, and you can be doing it again. And if all you care about in the world is hunting elk in the rut in Montana or Idaho or Utah or wherever, well, do you want to hunt elk in the rut twice a year? You can do that because there's elk in the Southern Hemisphere and they're magnificent. I don't know. I think it's kind of a cheat code that is a little bit slept on.
Yeah, it's always surprises me at the shows and a number of people who ask, and then obviously the first thing is, okay, well, it's going to clash with my hunting in September, October. I'm like, well, no, it won't. We're on the opposite end of the year there, so our prime rut, mid-March to end of April, that gives you an opportunity, and also ties in with often spring break. So
yeah,
if someone's wanting to bring down family, travel when spring break's on, it gives an opportunity. I mean, obviously we can't have everyone on spring break, but it does provide that window as well. So you can definitely have 2 bites at the apple.
Kate, I've thought about a year of the endless rut and like trying to find an animal that's huntable, that's rutting during every month of the year around the world, and to like spend the year doing that. Man, that would be fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah. A couple years ago, I went over to the UK to try extend that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my season here starts mid to late February in New Zealand, and it runs right through till late July. And then from there, I go straight over to British Columbia, and I head straight into sheep hunts and finish off with moose in October. And then from there, I went over to the UK, and I did 2 months over there. So it basically makes almost a full year's worth of work in hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an awesome, awesome way to live if you don't mind being nomadic.
Tell me about your dog. Dogs are a part of hunting culture in one way or another all over the world. But the way your dog assists you on a hunt is different from any place I've ever seen. So talk to me a little bit about what and who Moss is and what her job is.
So Moss is what we call handy dog. So she has a little bit of a whoopsie between one of my farm heading dogs and huntaways. So they're both sheep dogs.
What is a lot of people won't know what a huntaway is.
A huntaway it's a mixed breed between, I think it's like a Rottweiler, a Labrador, maybe an Alsatian, and something else.
Wow.
Yeah, and basically its job is to bark, make noise, and push the mob of sheep.
Yeah.
Whereas a heading dog is more like a border collie, and that kind of keeps the mob mobbed up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, my 2 dogs had a little bit of fun and made a little moss. and I liked her so much I had to keep her. And at that stage, when that happened, I was actually still shepherding, so I was going to keep her as a farm dog. And then I guess that was right in the peak of when New Zealand was locked down for COVID. And then that all sort of opened up and we started getting international hunters come back. So I went back into guiding again, and I liked Moss too much to farm her out or sell her. So I started training her for deer, which is a really common role here for dogs. A lot of New Zealand hunters do a lot of bush stalking, and we rely on dogs quite a lot to indicate deer, or they'll pick up a wind scent.
So how does that work?
So you keep the dog with you all the time in tight bush, and you've got a working relationship with that dog, so you're watching what that dog is doing, and every little thing that it's doing is telling you something, but it's up to you to be able to read it. So she'll be winding, picking up a scent, and she'll be kind of working that scent, trying to get us closer to that deer. So that's initially what I trained her for. But I'd bring her along hunting with me with the hunters here, and they just loved her too much to not bring her. So yeah, she's kind of like their emotional support.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
She's a good hand warmer.
Uh-huh.
She really pays attention. I haven't heard her make a single sound. So she'll help with recovery of wounded game. But the idea of a dog that helps you with stalking, that is silent and moving next to you through tight vegetation, and you're just interpreting your dog's body language to indicate the direction that you need to go, and probably to an extent, like stalking routes and things like that, that's fascinating. That requires a really close relationship with a dog.
Yeah, I'm by no means an expert in training dogs for that, but Moss and I have just learned together, and I've learned to read her.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's definitely better people out there to talk to about that avenue than me.
I don't know. I don't know those people, so you're the best person for me to talk to.
I'll put you in touch with them.
Do any of the other guides bring dogs with them?
No, we haven't had any other guides. So I run a deer dog as well, and mainly more obviously through the guiding season for tracking wounded if we need it. So quite often I'll come in and do a track, and hopefully we can rescue that animal, that trophy. But in my own hunting, I use both my dogs in the same way that Kate uses Moss, so I can work scent with them up close. I can read them. I think Kate's humbleness around training dogs is interesting. I think we all probably make the comment we don't have those expertise, and I'm sure there is plenty of people in New Zealand that have a very high level of ability in training dogs. The key piece is being able to have your dog and read your dog. I think the reality is if you and the dog connect and you can read each other, and there's a great working relationship there and the behaviour as well, then who cares how the dog was trained or what it was. The reality is that it's an assistant and a support role to you in your hunting, both from a scent, from where animals might be, where they might be held up, right through to, hey, I've got a wounded animal here, let's try and put a track in and see if we can find this wounded animal and humanely dispatch it. And so they play a good role in what we do here.
In New Zealand, what do you call that whistle that you carry?
We speak English, so we just call it a whistle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, sometimes you use different words for stuff.
Yeah, no, it's just
But it's
a
a
whistle.
specific type of dog whistle.
Yeah.
I see a lot of Border Collie folks use those back home, and a few other types of dog trainers. I am making judgment calls about that person's skill in dog training by whether they wear it on the outside of their shirt or not. And if they wear it on the inside of their shirt, like you do, and it's just part of what they wear every single day of their life, like that person knows what they're doing and they've got a good relationship with their dog. If they're wearing it on the outside of their shirt, like it's some type of fashion statement, like you probably make way too much noise with that thing, and I don't want to be around.
All hat, no cowboy.
That's right. Yeah. All hat, no cow. Yeah. Yeah. facts. Plenty of those. Yeah, the dress-up cowboy scene in the U.S. right now is absolutely insane with the popularity of Yellowstone. Oh my goodness.
It's much the same here.
Oh, it is brutal. Yeah, like double silk wild rags and flat brims and big ribbons on their hats and dudes wearing their spurs into the restaurant who don't own a horse. I'm just like, please make this stop. Please, please, please. But yeah, I guess that version of cowboys is having their day. Good for them.
Yeah.
So what are some other differences in hunting style in New Zealand compared to other places that you've hunted, like the UK and BC?
So the UK is really different, and I personally really enjoy quite intrepid hunts where you're way out in the middle of nowhere, no contact with society. So in the UK, it's really difficult to obviously get far enough away from anywhere to not see some form of, civilization. Is literally every square inch of of England has been touched by a human at some point.
Right.
But I enjoyed the UK way, way more than I thought I would. And I don't know if it's just purely because there just seems to be such a high density of game there, or if it's the different traditions, the different culture of it all. I just loved seeing how different it was. But what they do a lot of the time there is they sit in what they call high seats, or similar to a tree stand type thing, and they just look out over fields and shoot from there. What I really liked about it is that bow hunting is illegal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
you like that?
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah. Oh, archery. Archery's a vibe. A buddy of mine was looking at going on a bear hunt just for fun with me a couple years ago, and he said, "Should I bring my bow?" And I said, "Absolutely not. Like, if we're trying to kill bears, like let's do that. Let's bring rifles." He said, "You sound like every guide I've ever talked to." Like, why do you think that is? Why do you think the professionals tend to gravitate towards this? It's an interesting thing. I will say that outside of like brain shots with a rifle, the quickest kills I've ever seen have come from perfect archery shots. Mm-hmm. But all of the slowest ones have come from archery shots, and there's quite a lot more of that. So if archery's your thing, archery's your thing. I encourage you to get as lethal as you possibly can with your skills and your gear, and be very discriminatory about the shots that you take. Mm-hmm. Yep. Something I want to hit on with you, Darren, a little bit. Being a gun guy, it is always a little bit nerve-wracking for me to go to another place to use a rifle that's not my own. And it was pretty nice to roll up here and grab a rifle that shot sub-MOA immediately. That's an immediately good feeling. Yeah, so kudos to you for that. Much appreciated. Thanks for having good gear, because that matters.
Yeah, I think probably for most of the listeners may not understand, New Zealand can be quite a challenging place to bring guns down to when you choose to hunt here.
Yeah, what is the process for that for people who would want to?
So it's a very simple process from the point of view. You've got to go online and go through a bunch of questions. You've got to pull the information in around who you're going to be hunting with and where and addresses, and we become effectively your care role for your rifles while you're here. Mm-hmm. And so it's about a 130-day process from start to finish, and we encourage anyone coming down to hunt with us who's going to bring a rifle to make sure that process starts as early as possible, because at the end of the day, if you've got the permit, you're done. It's valid for, I think it's a year or 2 years for you, and as long as the dates are the same, they're easy to be changed if you need to. But so the process is not, it's not incredibly difficult or arduous. It's just a process. But it is frustrating, and it does have some limitations, especially if you intend to transit through any other country on the way here or way out of New Zealand. And also if you intend to carry on touring in New Zealand, it becomes a very challenging process because you effectively need the ability to lock those rifles away. And that's not generally a hotel or anything like that. That you actually have to have a process. So it can be done, and we do it for a number of clients, but it is definitely frustrates everyone, and it can be a little bit of a limitation from time-wise if somebody decides at the last minute they want to come to New Zealand. So leading on from that, we've been, I guess, very proud of the fact that we keep good rifles, and we try and replace them reasonably regularly, and we, I wouldn't say we're running the very top of the option in rifles, but we try and buy very good solid rifles and good optics, and we suppress everything no matter what. And
longest damn silencers I ever did see.
Yep, but they work.
Yep.
And I think our guides' ears are very important to us, as is our clients' ears and our own ears. And so for us, having everything suppressed is a great start to that, and it just makes the whole hunt a little more pleasant. And in New Zealand, suppressors are super simple. We can buy them off the shelf with a gun license and fit them to a gun, so it's not a great issue for us to have them.
When it comes to internal combustion, whether it's a suppressor or an engine, there's no replacement for displacement.
No, that's right.
So bigger cans tend to be quieter.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then obviously, we've worked closely with Spartan over this last 7 or 8 years, and
why would you do such a thing? I mean, you've got an absolute lunatic running the ship over there. No, I'm kidding. Rob, is a great friend and mentor to me, and he has been for far longer than anybody knew who I was. Rob has treated me the same from when I was fresh out of the Marine Corps and stumbling around shows and didn't know anything or anybody. He treats me the exact same way now. And that the passion that guy has for making everything a little bit better all the time and being very innovative in those rifle support systems is huge. Where I come into that is I see people going through great expense and effort to try to make their rifle marginally more accurate. Like folks, I swear to you, going from a 3/4 minute gun to a half-minute gun will cost you $6,000. And that's fine, but you cannot hold that in the field. You just can't. So I really encourage people to invest in their support systems so that they can maybe take their hold from 2 MOA to 1 MOA, which they can do for $100 over the heavier, clunkier support system that they might have bought. Like, this is the place to really make your money go farther in terms of actual field accuracy. That's my stance on it. I think rifle stability is absolutely critical. It is the most critical. But Kate, what are your thoughts? Accurate rifle or stable rifle? What are you going to pick?
Stable rifle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, if you can't hold your rifle still, it doesn't matter how accurate your rifle is.
Word to the street. I totally agree. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that that is right from when I first met Rob. I was lucky enough to meet Rob about 9-10 years ago, I think it was, at the shows, and he was just starting out with the first of the Spartan gear, and he actually gave me the first 2 that were on the stand there and said, "Here, take these back to New Zealand." Actually, I'm telling a lie, it was the year before COVID, because he said, "I'll come down and see you next year," and that was the year that COVID struck and New Zealand shut, so that was the year I met him, and I think that was his whole, I liked that that knowledge and that diversity that Rob brings, and that he is so widely skilled, and when I chatted with him about it, he's like, "Well, just take these and try them, they might work for you," and so we did. And for me, today Spartan provides us with so many different options. I was hunting in Africa last year on the long sticks, and the opportunity there, and you're probably seeing, James, I've modified a couple of the products by using legs off one and putting them onto another, and I think that the opportunity that's given me as a hunter to find something that I'm really happy with, and I think Kate can probably comment more. New Zealand shooting is never the same 2 days in a row, so you just don't know whether you're going to be putting in a very steep downhill shot, a steep uphill shot, the side of a mountain, whatever it is. So that the equipment for me has been a real opportunity to pick something that has that diversity.
Yeah. The shot that I took on my stag was 232 yards, not a far shot. That's really the sweet spot, in my opinion. Like that's right in the zone of a good distance away to be from an animal, so that you can get away with some of those micro movements, but also close enough that your shot certainty is very, very high. I was laying on the crest of a ridge where I was cantilevered off to one side, so I couldn't get directly behind the rifle. In a lot of situations, it would be very difficult to get your rifle level in that, but because I was able to really quickly extend out one of the legs of the bipod and then rotate the rifle on top of that little bipod, I had time while we were waiting for this animal to stand up, so I dug a little hole in the ground for my elbow to sit in, and I was rock steady by the time we got the opportunity, and it was really fun. Kate and I had a little crossfire of communication there that I'll always look back on fondly, but that stag stood up, and evidently I hear from other people that Kate said, "Go ahead and shoot whenever you're ready," and I didn't hear that, so I was ready, and I said, "Kate, do you want me to take that shot?" And she had her ears plugged, and I said, "Kate, do you want me to take that shot?" And then just kind of kept getting louder and louder, and then eventually she unplugged her ears because she was getting frustrated with me not shooting, and repeated in her big girl voice, "Go ahead and shoot him when you're ready."
Jeez, James, what are you mucking around at?
Oh, right. Which is like, it's so comical to me, because like, how many times have I been in that situation from the guide perspective? Like, what in the flat earth is going on right now? Like, just press the trigger. This is your opportunity. Don't squander this moment. And I'm sure you're thinking, like, what is this dude doing? Talking all this game about being a hunter, and here he is just like taking a nap on the rifle stock. But it all worked out. Yeah, that bullet whipped across the canyon, and that great big stag dropped fast. Mm-hmm. And then we were able to get your monstrous tractor heroically far enough down the hill that we could get a rope to it, and got the body of that stag skidded out and headed for the meat shop, and I was able to pack out the head and antlers, which made me really happy. That was fantastic. These are cool animals. It's fascinating to me, the genetic potential that's been unlocked in these stags. Talk to me a little bit about how that happened, because it was kind of an accident in a lot of ways, it sounds like.
Yeah, I guess you could look at it that way. I mean, New Zealand got involved in the deer recovery industry probably 40, 50 years ago, in the early stages of that, and that I guess started probably in the meat, the collection of wild animals for meat and export into the European market, and then followed on with New Zealand realising there was an opportunity to farm deer, and so then the live capture era came through where deer were captured, and then following on from that was the velvet industry and the growth of that, and so that was obviously the velvet being harvested from stags and sold into the Asian market, and so consequently out of that, my take on that would be that New Zealand looked at it and said, well, how do we improve this? Just like you try and improve a cattle beast or the weight gain on any animal we produce on a ranch. And so New Zealand set about improving genetics in red deer and has notably become the world leader in that category for a very long time now. Yes, as other countries are now catching up, obviously, with AI and embryo transplant and so forth. But there's a high volume of red deer farmed in New Zealand for meat, and that's obviously the venison you see in the market that comes from New Zealand would be coming from those farms, or it'd be wild shot. And then you've got obviously the same thing in the elk category, and then you've got the velvet process. And so that has allowed the deer industry in New Zealand to exponentially improve genetics, and not just in antler, but also in body size, life expectancy, breeding, the whole category that you would see the same as looking at a cow or a bull or any other animal for that matter, New Zealand sheep. So, and I'd say from that is, there's a number of places in New Zealand where genetics have improved drastically because of animals escaping from those areas, but also our high population of straight wild deer here in New Zealand and unmanaged, and the fact that our government doesn't see it as a resource, they see it as a pest, has meant that generally our genetics outside of areas that are managed are reasonably average or below average.
And the first red deer were brought here by Captain Cook in the 1700s?
I believe that's correct.
Ish?
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't have been 1800s, would it?
I thought UK.
Yeah, I think they might have come from
Scotland.
Yeah.
So
the UK. There was over 200 different liberations.
Yeah.
From all over.
Liberations.
So they were brought over. Some of them were brought over from like Richmond Park.
Okay.
In the UK. Some of them were brought over from Invermark in Scotland.
Okay.
And they were all, brought over by boat. And I think most of them were in the early 1800s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So there's a fairly wide genetic base because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And with no predators, obviously, we talked a little about this in our last post, but the no predator thing is obviously has a benefit and a disadvantage. And if you look at it from a point of view of numbers, very few progeny from red deer are lost each year. So the growth curve across the wild population can be fairly extensive fairly quickly. And obviously without that being managed or not managed at all in public space, then there is no quality.
And, across the U.S., whether you're talking about whitetail, mule deer, elk, get up into the North Country and the other species, you were looking at across the lifetime of a female ungulate, at least 70, if not 80% of their offspring are going to die to predators. I knew that New Zealand didn't have predators, right? I feel like that's fairly common knowledge, but I'd never considered what your populations would do without that, right? If you aren't suffering, a 30% loss of your fawn crop or your calf crop in the first month of their lives, and if the success rate of all these individuals is that much higher, your potential for exponential population growth is absolutely massive. So when people look at things like helicopter gunning deer or tahr or chamois or goats or whatever it is, they could easily be like, that is wrong. Why is that happening? Well, it has to, because the potential for massive population growth and subsequent collapse, disease transfer, things like that, that would be inevitable without those control efforts.
Yeah, I think you've got to look at it with a very much a view from above, in each of those tools, whether it be the hunter, the recreation, the person looking for meat for the family, through to the person looking for a trophy, through to the fact that we need to control those numbers so that the population isn't decimating farming area or causing issues, and then obviously the lead on from diseases, those sorts of things. But there's a wider view got to be taken that in New Zealand, I would think that the success rate of breeding is probably 95%, 96%, which is very high, and so numbers can get out of control pretty quickly. And obviously I'm reasonably aware of that because of the beef business that we run and the work we do on ranches here controlling numbers, and the opportunity in that type of situation to then cull, obviously genetics that aren't what somebody's looking for or aren't what the landowner wants to see, or just generally reducing numbers. But it is interesting to see how quickly those populations of wild animals can grow. And I think things like chamois, there's no great issue with numbers being out of control in chamois. I think it's at a balanced level, and recreation hunters in New Zealand play a huge part in control of that. And I think that's, I guess, one of the things we see as being very lucky in New Zealand as Kiwis and New Zealanders, as our opportunity to go and hunt and hunt some pretty cool species. But chamois and tahr, tahr's obviously the government has caused us a lot of issues over the last few years with tahr, and that's because it's in a managed area, and so they, in their own eyes, are measuring what they believe is damage to the mountain fauna and reducing numbers to match that. I think probably as hunters, we always want to see more tahr, and we always want to see the opportunities to be there. So there's a balance somewhere between fauna being damaged and having the right number of that species, and I'd probably suggest it's a little bit below where it should be right now, and hopefully it's allowed to come back into a bit better state to support both recreation and outfitters. But also, there is a large number of private properties, and we're one of those outfitters that operates on private property, so that is not generally managed under any government system. So then there is still opportunity in those areas for larger numbers.
What do you think would have to change culturally for the public land hunters in New Zealand to start managing for quality and age class a little bit better, or is that needed?
I think it's definitely needed. There's no question about that, and we've got a couple of TV programs running here in New Zealand on hunting in government land and what it means. I just Kate can probably comment because she's grown up hunting like I have, but the reality is often hunting is seen as a source of meat for families, and you'll hear a lot of New Zealand hunters say, I'm out there to hunt meat, I'm not out there to hunt a trophy, and so they literally don't care and don't have a lot of intuition to the whole ability to maybe leave that 3-year-old stag because he's going to be something when he's 5 or 6, and the other mentality is, if I don't take him, someone else will. Right. And so we see a lot of those things coming through, and I can talk about one area here locally that we harvest for meat, and we left about 8 or 9 very good potential young stags last season, and I monitored a couple of local helicopter pages and was disappointed to see I think at least 4 of them came out with hunters who had shot them within a few weeks of us leaving them. So that is a challenge for New Zealand, and probably why the genetics don't get a chance to improve to the levels that we would love to see. But that mentality of, I'm here now and I've got a 10 or 12 point stag in front of me, I will take that because someone else will take it tomorrow, and so it's gone, and there is no longevity from that breeding. And I think the other comment I would add to that is the fact that we've been brought up with the fact that the government believes and treats all of these as pests because they're not native to New Zealand, and so the process around reducing numbers all the time has always been the thing that you're up against, and so it's very hard to get the knowledge and the attitude to saving and looking at what you're doing and when and why to achieve that.
Something within wildlife ecology that I would like to see more places begin acknowledging is a naturalized species, right? So we have lots of non-native species all over the world. And some of that non-native is natural in a way, right? So take North America. The species that were there before the end of the Ice Age, very few of them still are, right? And then a huge influx of new species came in. Okay, now that's 10, 12,000 years ago. We're going to call those native species. Well, what about species that have been there for several hundred years? At what point do we say, all right, they've reached the point of normalcy in that ecosystem? They're playing an ecological role. This is a naturalized species. Take game birds, for example. This is a lovely example. Nobody is mad about pheasants. Nobody's mad about the Hungarian partridge, which comes from Hungary. Nobody's mad about the chukar, which is the national bird of Iraq. We can go down this list of non-native game species that we manage for, that there's seasons and limits and lots of controls over, and they're celebrated game species for food and for recreation, for the culture that surrounds them. But then when we look at something else like maybe the aoudad, which has now been in Texas for 100 years or so, that is very much considered a non-native invasive species, even though it was intentionally brought there. Does it have equilibrium in the ecosystem after 100 years? I don't know. Is it a North American wild sheep? The Wild Sheep Foundation says no, but it's been there for a century. I think that we need to start acknowledging naturalized with some of this stuff and then manage them accordingly.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of that starting to come in. There's herds of special interest, Hosey, that's New Zealand's looking at, and the Wild Game Council are looking at working with government on. That is probably the first step I've seen in my time, where we might end up in a space where we can identify herds of special interest, and that could be herds of deer in certain areas that have very strong genetics or whatever, that they're going to have much better control over, and I think that's really important. I think for listeners, you've got to understand that also New Zealand has a high level of, or high volume of native fauna, and there is some concern from government and from the countryside point of view about damage caused, whether it be erosion, whether it be the browsing line from deer or whatever it might be. And so there is some approaches there, and also TB is an issue in farmed cat. Well, can be an issue from a farmed point of view, or ranching point of view, and so there's a lot of work being put into New Zealand over the last probably 50 years especially to try and reduce the spread of TB, and that from possums, ferrets, wild boar, those types of things. And so unfortunately for some species, they become a by-kill of those programs trying to control that. I'm not saying they're the right programs, I'm just saying that is one of the challenges we've got, is that we're a primary producing country. We're built on producing sheep, beef and primary products, and disease is a big threat, and followed by we've got a countryside that's very tender, very fragile, and so we do, as citizens of this country, need to make sure that we control pests, because we don't have predators to control them. We need to control them in a way that they're not damaging that.
Yeah, it's not surprising to me at all, but it's lovely to see how much all of you care about your ecosystem, and you're not just trying to create a monster stag. Like you're a working operation, you're managing for wildlife and for the ecosystem across the board, and then making sure that the people that come here have the experience that they want. But there's no way that somebody's going to come here and not be surprised by the quality of this experience, because you just have so much more to offer than I think anybody could realize until they've experienced it. It's amazing. Kate, your skill as a guide, tremendous. You're a good guide. It's not a compliment that I would throw out lightly. I think you could hang in any butcher shop in the world. I think you could work for any outfitter in the world. if Darren ever starts treating you bad, pack up moss. You can come work for me. we'll, we'll, we'll go chase some elk around. There's no sandflies.
Oh, that sounds good.
There are bears.
I don't mind them.
But no, you guys you're doing it right. I'm really proud of everything that you've overcome, and coming out of 3 years of absolute shutdown, and coming out as strong as you have. It's really, really impressive. I wish more people could get to come here and see this. It's really special.
I think attention to detail is something that we all take very seriously, and that you look at what Kate and Monty and our crew, our guides do, and their attention to detail. But that, for me, that's really important right through. That's the chef, that's housekeeping, that's whatever. It's the little things that count. And I think you and I chatted a lot of times over the last year or so. There's a bunch of outfitters in New Zealand, and the opportunity most of us can provide you is the Red Stag and so forth. So that part of it's there for you to choose an outfitter in New Zealand. It needs to come down to the detail about what you want to achieve out of your trip, what you want to achieve, what's on your bucket list from a point of view of what are your expectations. Do you want to be in a small motel driving a long way every day, or are you wanting to be in a situation where you're kept at a level that's quality but not excessive and so forth? And so who's your outfitter, who's your guides, what's the hunting country like, is it private? All those things are really important. And the other things I think as a client you need to hone in on to make your decision who you choose in New Zealand to hunt with.
Yeah, it's I've been thinking a lot about kind of making a video series and teaching a class on how to conduct an international hunt, because first and foremost, it's a logistics issue, and I think that's the part that stops people up. In my mind, the very first thing you have to do is decide, yes or no, do I want to hunt in another country? Yes. All right. What species do you want to hunt, and where do those species occur? Okay. What's your budget? What's your timeline? What's figure that out, because those are all things that are non-negotiable from the outside. And then you've got to figure out, okay, where am I going to go? Who am I going to trust with my incredibly valuable time, with my hard-earned money, who's going to ensure that that I have the experience that I want to have, or an experience that's going to exceed any of my expectations, all of my expectations. And after you've done that, picking out the outfitter can be a massive challenge. If you go to websites, they kind of look the same. If you go to social media, they kind of look the same. So then it's like, well, how do I pick? For me, it comes down to a couple things, and I've learned this over many, many years of doing this. Either talk to somebody you trust who's been there, or call that outfitter. If you're calling in the blind, you don't know anybody who's been there, call them up, talk to them on the phone. Do they sound like a nice person? Do they sound like they're interested in having your business and are going to work with you? Because a lot of them don't sound like that. And if they're interested in having your business and you can have a phone conversation with them, and they have availability that fits your schedule, and the hunt is within your budget, the next thing that you should do, folks, is ask them for some references from people who have hunted with them before. And I would say, can you give me a couple references of people who were successful, and can you give me a reference of somebody who wasn't? And talk to all of them on the phone, and they will be very, very honest with you, because they have nothing to gain from lying one way or another. And if that all works out, then it just comes down to these details like, am I going to use their rifle? Am I going to use my rifle? How do I manage the flights and things like that? And then just get going, but get started on it, because you need to be planning this a year or two out. And if that means that's going to take you that long to, save up the rest of the money for the trip, that's perfectly okay. Like that's fine.
Absolutely, and I think there's two key things for us. First up in the early parts of this discussion is what is on your bucket list, and what we're looking for there is trying to understand timing and dates that might work for you. If you're here to chase the red stag and the elk and fallow, and the alpine species are not such interest to you, then we always say, well, look at you should think between mid-February and maybe May as being your opportunity. Obviously, the rut's in amongst that, but that's your ultimate. If you want alpine in there and you're wanting a tar with the Great Cape, then we're going to push you later into the season to give you're still going to get your same opportunity, but not a rut in the red stag, elk, so forth, but you're going to get the opportunity to take an alpine species in their winter glory. And so that's really important for us, is to understand that, and then that gives you a chance to look at your dates and say, well, what does that look like from your point of view and why is it booking? And then thinking about the year is something important too. So if you look for prime rut dates, and generally you'd be looking out into like 2028, 2029 right now. So you've got to be thinking at least 2 to 3 seasons ahead to be getting those dates, and that's really important. If someone's wanting to be down here on a bow and in the rut for a big elk, then you want to be getting on those dates pretty quick and getting them locked in. And like you say, you can put down a deposit and then work through the next 2 years of paying that down so that it's not a direct hit on your wallet.
Yeah, it's a good way to do it. Kate, do you have any advice for people who are trying to hunt internationally, whether it's here or somewhere else?
Just, like you say, talk to references. If you can, talk to the people you're going to be hunting with, because that'll give you a good idea of, what's actually going to be going down.
Yeah.
If the outfitter lets you talk to the guide, then talk to the guide. Talk to.
As long as it's not Monty,
Yeah. Maybe not Monty.
Probably keep Monty off the phone.
Yeah. Too much talking, not enough listening.
I love being around him. He's 20 years old. He's extremely experienced, especially for a 20-year-old, but really for anybody. But I see so much of the younger version of myself in him. Mm-hmm. He was wearing shorts the other day when there was snow on the mountains. He was absolutely freezing to death, but he wasn't going to show it, and that was me. And, yesterday he was going to load a giant red stag by hand into a trailer that had a winch on it. That was me for sure. Right. And then me and Kate, who are running out of knee cartilage a little bit, are sitting there like, hey dude, there's another way. Let's go ahead and use these tools. But I love it, man. I absolutely love to see that fire that he's got, and he's obviously just as passionate about this as anybody. And I would hunt with that dude anywhere and give him an even harder time the next time. I want to come back for tar. I'm keen to do that. That's just quite an animal.
Yeah, and a real challenging hunt.
Yeah,
and good fun.
Yeah, and a very, very, very different hunt. Like moving into wildly different terrain, and I don't know. That one's very interesting to me. I was telling Kate earlier, I have the smallest amount of desire to go elk hunting in fjordlands, but there's a lot of the rest of what New Zealand has to offer that I want to come back for. And now that I know how easy it is to get down here, like that fear factor that even though I've traveled so much, is still there for me. It's like it's crazy. It's so easy to get here. Yeah. Okay, so if folks want to get a hold of you and start asking you questions that we haven't answered, what's the best way to do that?
Jump on our website is probably the first step. Have a look around and make sure that that we tick the boxes for you, and it looks like a place you'd like to stay, and it meets all those goals. On our website, there's an inquiries page there. You've also got my own number there. You're welcome to call me anytime. I don't mind whether it's 1 a.m. in the morning or midnight. Give me a call on WhatsApp or just on normal phone line. Happy to chat over your desires, what you want to achieve. You're welcome to send us an email, send us a link, and we will get back to you just as quick as we can. Generally, that's within 48 hours of sending it through. We'll get back to you. And what I like to do is, if it's looking like we're the right outfitter for you, getting the group of us on the phone and chatting over, well, what do you want to achieve, when, how, what, are you bringing a wife, are you bringing a spouse, what do they want to achieve, and then we will effectively create a bespoke package to match what you want to achieve. We've got a bunch of standard packages that we can start you off on, but for me it's really important that we know what you want to get out of New Zealand before we even start this, because no use telling you one thing and delivering another. So, but website's a good spot. Social media, we're on both Instagram and Facebook, and you're welcome to reach out through those platforms as well. And we've got a great team below me who can help respond to different questions and so forth along the way. And like you said, you're welcome at any stage to chat with someone like Kate, or Carrie generally looks at organising all of the timing around your trip and what do you want to achieve in ways of non-hunting activities, whether it's a day spa, whether it's a hike, whether it's a horse ride, some shopping, those types of things. So hit us with your bucket list, hit us with your goals and what you want to get out of it, and we'll do our absolute best to put together something that matches what you're looking for.
Well, I'm absolutely willing to put my reputation on the line and put it right there with your guys' name and say that there's absolutely no doubt that somebody's going to come down here and have a good time.
Thank you, and certainly appreciate you coming down and hunting with us and putting your trust in us to do that.
Well, thank you for an incredible experience. We've got a little bit more to go, I feel just fortunate beyond what I can describe to have gotten to come down here and experience all this.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cheers. Thanks a lot, Kate.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who has taken the time out of their busy lives to write a review for the show and share it with their friends. I'm extremely proud of how intelligent, engaged, and adventurous this audience is. Original music for the Six Ranch podcast is written and performed by Justin Hay. Art for the Six Ranch podcast was created by John Chatelain and digitized by Celia Harlander. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.